A 9-year-old boy versus a master manipulator. Who will win? Noah Cole's perfect life shatters when his father falls for Sophia, a charming woman with a deadly secret. As Noah digs deeper, he uncovers a terrifying truth. She's done this before, and now his father is next. But no one believes him. With time running out and danger closing in, Noah must outsmart a woman who stops at nothing to get what she wants. Where are you watching from? Let us know, and don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of his penthouse balcony, the city skyline stretching endlessly before him. The evening glow painted the towering skyscrapers in hues of amber and violet, but his mind was elsewhere. His hands, strong and steady in the boardroom, trembled slightly as he gripped the balcony rail. Tomorrow, his life would change forever. Tomorrow, he would announce to the world that he had finally found love again. Inside the vast modern living room, Noah Cole sat curled up on the leather couch, his small fingers gripping a book he wasn't actually reading. At 9 years old, he was sharp. Too sharp for his own good, as Ethan often thought. He watched his father through the floor-to-ceiling windows, studying the way his shoulders tensed, the way his jaw clenched, as if bracing for a storm. Noah had seen that look before. It was the same one his dad wore at his mother's funeral, the look of a man forcing himself to move forward when he wasn't sure how. Ethan exhaled and turned back toward his son. "Hey, buddy," he said, forcing a smile. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Noah marked his place in the book and nodded. "Yeah, sure." Ethan sat beside him, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, you know how much I love you, right?" That was never a good way to start a conversation. Noah's heart clenched. "Yeah. And you know that ever since your mom passed..." Ethan hesitated, as he always did when mentioning her. "I've been trying my best to keep everything together, to make sure you're happy." Noah nodded, though he wasn't sure where this was going. His father had always been his anchor, the one person he knew would never leave, never break. But something in Ethan's voice made him uneasy. Ethan took a deep breath. "I met someone, Noah. Her name is Sophia Turner, and I asked her to marry me." The words hit Noah like a slap. He sat up straighter, his book forgotten. "Marry you?" His voice came out sharper than he intended. Ethan nodded. "I wanted you to know first. You're the most important person in my life." Noah's stomach twisted. He had heard his dad mention Sophia before, but only in passing. He had never met her, never even seen a picture. And now she was going to be his stepmother? "Is she nice?" Noah asked, though the question felt pointless. Ethan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "She's wonderful, smart, kind. I think you'll really like her." Noah wasn't sure what to say. He wanted to trust his dad's judgment, but something about this felt rushed, forced. "When do I meet her?" he asked instead. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, as if relieved that Noah wasn't outright rejecting the idea. "I was hoping we could have dinner together this weekend." Noah nodded slowly. "Okay." But even as he said it, he felt something gnawing at the edges of his mind. A quiet warning. The dinner was set at an upscale restaurant, the kind of place where everything was plated like artwork, and the waiters never wrote anything down. Noah sat across from his father, his dress shirt stiff and uncomfortable. Then she arrived. Sophia Turner was breathtakingly beautiful. Tall and poised, with sleek blonde hair that cascaded over her shoulders in perfect waves. Her emerald green eyes sparkled under the restaurant's dim lighting, and when she smiled, the whole room seemed to notice. She greeted Ethan with a kiss on the cheek before turning her attention to Noah. "You must be Noah," she said, her voice smooth like honey. "I've heard so much about you." Noah nodded, unsure how to respond. Her smile was perfect, her words warm, but something about her felt off. Throughout dinner, she asked him questions, her voice light and interested. "What's your favorite subject in school? Do you play any sports? You must be so smart, just like your dad." But Noah noticed the way her smile never quite reached her eyes, the way she tilted her head just a little too much when listening, as if studying him rather than truly hearing him. When his father got up to take a phone call, leaving them alone, the warmth in her expression flickered. She leaned in just slightly, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the table. "You and your dad are really close, aren't you?" she said. Noah hesitated. "Yeah," she hummed thoughtfully. "That's good. But change is coming, you know. Things will be different soon." Noah swallowed. "Different how?" She reached for her wine glass, smiling again. But this time, the edges of it felt sharp. "You'll see." Ethan returned before Noah could respond, and Sophia seamlessly slipped back into her role, the charming, soon-to-be stepmother. But Noah's skin prickled with unease. Something about her words felt like a warning. The car ride home was quiet. Ethan was beaming. "See? She's great, right?" Noah forced a smile. "Yeah, she's nice." But deep down, he wasn't so sure. Over the next few weeks, Sophia became a more permanent fixture in their lives. She visited often, bringing gifts, books, puzzles, things she knew a smart kid like Noah would appreciate. She complimented Ethan endlessly, always finding ways to praise him in front of others. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. But Noah noticed things, little things. The way she subtly rearranged the house, as if making it her own. The way she scolded him for leaving his shoes by the door, even though his dad had never minded. The way she looked at him when he reached for Ethan's hand at dinner, like he was stepping into her territory. Then there were the comments, soft, almost imperceptible. "You know, you're lucky to have a father like Ethan," she said one evening. "Not every child gets such opportunities." Noah frowned. "What do you mean?" Sophia's smile tightened. "Just that you should always be grateful. Some kids don't get second chances." A chill ran down Noah's spine. He didn't understand what she meant, but the way she said it made his stomach twist. Despite his unease, the wedding plans moved forward. Sophia threw herself into preparations, dress fittings, venue selections, meetings with planners. Ethan was happier than Noah had seen him in years. So Noah tried to ignore the feeling. He tried to tell himself he was imagining things. But everything changed one afternoon. He had been walking past Sophia's study when he heard her voice, sharp, low, not at all like the sweet tone she used around his dad. "Of course I'll have access to his accounts once we're married. It's all lined up. I just have to keep the kid out of the way until then." Noah froze. A silence, then a faint chuckle. "Don't worry about him. He's just a spoiled brat. Once I get what I want, he won't be a problem anymore." His blood turned to ice. Noah backed away from the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had to tell his dad. But would he even believe him? Sophia was careful, calculated. She had woven herself so perfectly into Ethan's life that he would never suspect her. Noah clenched his fists. He needed proof. That night, lying in bed, he opened his tablet and pressed record. Tomorrow, he would start gathering evidence. No matter what it took, he would stop her. And with that thought, Noah fell asleep, unaware that the real danger had only just begun. Noah woke up the next morning with a plan. He had spent the entire night replaying Sophia's words in his head. Once I get what I want, he won't be a problem anymore. He wasn't sure what she meant exactly, but he knew one thing: she wasn't who she pretended to be. His dad had to see that. He had to make him see. But Ethan was too in love to notice. Over breakfast, he was completely absorbed in a conversation with Sophia about wedding invitations. She was talking about calligraphy styles and gold foil printing, as if nothing else in the world mattered. Noah sat quietly, watching her as he pushed his eggs around on his plate. She was good, too good. Every word, every movement was carefully calculated. Then, in the middle of her discussion about floral arrangements, Sophia turned to Noah with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're awfully quiet this morning," she observed. "Is something wrong, sweetheart?" Noah's stomach churned at the word sweetheart. He forced himself to meet her gaze. "No," he said, "just tired." Sophia hummed, tapping a manicured nail against her coffee cup. "You know, Ethan," she said, turning back to his father, "we should really think about setting some more structured rules around the house. Noah's growing up, and discipline is important." Ethan, barely looking up from his phone, nodded absent-mindedly. "What kind of rules?" "Well," Sophia said, her tone light, almost playful. "For starters, I notice he tends to leave his shoes by the door instead of in the closet. It's such a small thing, but little habits like that can be a reflection of a bigger issue, don't you think?" Noah's jaw tightened. His shoes? His dad never cared about that before. Why was this suddenly an issue? Ethan finally glanced up, smiling at Sophie. "I guess we could work on that, huh, buddy?" Noah forced a nod. "Yeah, sure." Sophia smiled sweetly, but there was a flicker of something behind her eyes. Satisfaction. She was testing the waters, seeing how much influence she had over Ethan. And worse, his father didn't even notice. Later that afternoon, Noah decided to start gathering proof. He waited until Sophia left for a dress fitting, then snuck into her office. He had never been inside before. It was decorated in cool shades of white and gray, every book and folder perfectly aligned. It looked pristine, too pristine, like someone who was trying very hard to make everything appear perfect. His heart pounded as he scanned the room. He needed something, anything, to prove that she was lying. He started with the drawers. The first few were filled with harmless things: receipts, wedding catalogs, neatly stacked stationery. But then he found the bottom drawer. Locked. Noah swallowed hard. If it was locked, that meant something important was inside. He glanced around the room, searching for a key. He checked the desk, the bookshelves, even a decorative bowl on a side table. Nothing. Then, just as he was about to give up, he noticed her purse sitting on the chair. His pulse quickened. It was risky. If she caught him, he'd have no way to explain himself. But he had no choice. He grabbed the purse and rummaged through it with shaking fingers. Lipstick, sunglasses, a compact mirror, and then his fingers brushed against cold metal. The key? His hands were clammy as he rushed back to the drawer. He slid the key into the lock, turned it, and heard a soft click. Slowly, he pulled the drawer open. Inside was a stack of folders. At first, they seemed like basic financial documents, bank statements, investment records. But as he flipped through them, his stomach sank. The documents weren't just about Ethan's finances. They were about transferring them. Noah's hands trembled as he read through the fine print. If Ethan married Sophia, large portions of his assets would be moved into her name. It wasn't immediate. There were steps, legal processes. But the end goal was clear. She would have access to everything. Then he found something even worse. A boarding school application. His name was printed at the top. The school was across the country. A strict academy for behaviorally challenged children. Noah's blood turned to ice. She wasn't just planning to marry his dad. She was planning to get rid of him. A sound outside the office made him jump. Footsteps. He barely had time to shove the papers back into the drawer, lock it, and throw the key back into her purse before the door creaked open. Sophia stood there, her eyes scanning the room. Noah froze. For a second, she just looked at him, her face unreadable. Then, slowly, she smiled. Looking for something? Noah's throat was dry. No, I was just, looking for my notebook. Sophia tilted her head. Your notebook? She took a step closer, her heels clicking against the polished wood floor. That's funny, because this isn't your office. Noah forced himself to stay calm. I thought I left it here. Sophia studied him for a long moment, then let out a soft chuckle. You're an interesting little boy, Noah. She moved past him, gliding over to her desk. Always watching, always listening. Noah didn't move. Then, just as he turned to leave, she spoke again, so softly that it sent a chill down his spine. You should be careful where you snoop. Noah clenched his fists and walked out, his heart hammering in his chest. She knew. Maybe not exactly what he had seen, but she knew he was suspicious. That night he barely slept. He kept thinking about the papers, the boarding school, the way she had looked at him, like she was already planning something. He needed more proof. The next day, he set up his tablet in her office, hidden behind a stack of books, with the voice recorder running. It was a long shot. He didn't know if she'd say anything incriminating, but he had to try. Hours later, when he retrieved the device and listened back, his stomach twisted. Sophia's voice, clear as day. The wedding is just the beginning. Once it's done, I'll have everything I need. And the kid? He'll be out of the way soon enough. Noah's breath caught. She had said it. She had actually said it. He had proof. His fingers hovered over the send button, ready to send the recording to his dad. Then, suddenly, the door to his room burst open. Sophia stood there. For the first time, she didn't bother to fake a smile. She stepped forward, her emerald eyes sharp, her lips curled in something between amusement and menace. You really should learn to mind your own business, Noah. Noah's heart pounded as he shoved the tablet under his blanket. I don't know what you mean. Sophia let out a soft, humorless laugh. Oh, come on. You've been sneaking around for days. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Noah stayed silent, his hands gripping the sheets. She took another step forward, lowering her voice. Listen carefully, sweetheart, she whispered, her voice dripping with something icy. You might think you're clever, but you're just a little boy. And your father? He's mine. Noah's pulse was racing, but he forced himself to hold her gaze. You won't get away with this. Sophia smirked. Who's going to believe you? She turned on her heel, heading for the door. Then she paused and looked over her shoulder. Stay out of my way, Noah, or you'll regret it. The door clicked shut behind her. Noah let out a shaky breath, his entire body trembling. She was wrong about one thing. His dad would believe him, because now he had everything he needed to expose her. Noah's hands trembled as he stared at the tablet's screen, the recording of Sophia's voice still playing in his ears. The wedding is just the beginning. Once it's done, I'll have everything I need. And the kid? He'll be out of the way soon enough. He clenched his jaw, his heart hammering. This was it, the proof he needed. His dad had to listen now. He grabbed the tablet, about to rush downstairs, when something made him pause. His father was completely in love with Sophia. What if she twisted things? What if she made it seem like he was the one lying? Noah had seen how easily she manipulated people, how she smiled sweetly while saying the most chilling things. If he wasn't careful, she'd turn this around on him. He needed a plan. He needed backup. Noah hurried to his backpack, pulled out his phone, and transferred the recording to multiple places. His email, his USB drive, even his gaming console. If Sophia somehow got rid of his tablet, he wouldn't lose everything. Then, gripping the tablet tightly, he took a deep breath and marched downstairs. His father was in his home office, leaning back in his leather chair, scanning documents on his computer. The wedding was only a week away, and the stress of the final preparations was clear in the tightness of his shoulders. "Dad," Noah said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I need to talk to you. It's important." Ethan glanced up, offering a tired smile. "What's up, buddy?" Noah hesitated for only a second before placing the tablet on the desk and hitting play. Sophia's voice filled the office. "The wedding is just the beginning. Once it's done, I'll have everything I need. And the kid? He'll be out of the way soon enough." Ethan's smile vanished. His forehead creased as he leaned in, listening intently. When the recording ended, the silence in the room was suffocating. Noah stared at his father, waiting, hoping he would react with the same horror that had flooded through him. Instead, Ethan exhaled sharply and rubbed a hand down his face. "Noah, where did you get this?" Noah's stomach dropped. That wasn't the reaction he had been expecting. I recorded it. In her office. I knew something was wrong and I needed proof." Ethan shook his head, looking more exhausted than anything else. "You bugged her office?" Noah's heart pounded. "That's not the point, Dad. Did you hear what she said? She's planning to take everything from you, and she wants to send me away." Ethan sighed and leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "Noah, I know you're struggling with this change. I get it. But you're taking things too far." Noah's breath caught. "What? You can't just go around recording private conversations." Maybe she was venting, maybe she was talking to someone about something unrelated. "Are you kidding me?" Noah's voice rose, desperation creeping in. "You heard her. She literally said she'll get rid of me once she has what she wants." Ethan looked pained. I can't believe that, Noah. Sophia has been nothing but kind to you. Maybe you're misunderstanding." "She's lying to you," Noah shouted. At that exact moment, a soft knock echoed from the doorway. Sophia. She stood there, dressed in a silk blouse and tailored pants, looking effortlessly composed, but Noah saw the flicker of triumph in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said sweetly, stepping into the room. "I didn't mean to interrupt, but I heard raised voices and I got worried." Ethan sighed. "Noah, I think we should—" "No," Noah snapped, turning to Sophia. Tell him what you said." Sophia's lips parted, her emerald eyes widening in perfect imitation of hurt. "Noah, I don't know what you think you heard, But I would never say something like that." "You're lying!" Noah's voice shook with frustration. "I have proof. I just played it." Sophia tilted her head, then turned to Ethan with a concerned expression. "What proof?" Ethan hesitated, then pointed to the tablet. "Noah recorded you." Sophia's eyes flicked to the screen, and for just a second, something dark flashed behind them before she turned back to Ethan, her voice soft and trembling. "Ethan? You don't actually believe this, do you?" Noah gritted his teeth. Ethan sighed again, shaking his head. It doesn't make sense. Why would you say something like that?" Sophia stepped closer to him, placing a delicate hand on his arm. "I wouldn't." Ethan glanced at Noah, waiting for an answer. But before Noah could say anything, Sophia let out a small, sad sigh. "I think I know what's happening here." Noah froze. Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Sophia hesitated just enough to make it look like she was debating whether to speak. Then, with a carefully constructed softness, she said, "Noah's struggling with all these changes. I mean, it's just been the two of you for so long. I know how hard it must be to imagine someone new coming into the family." Noah's hands clenched into fists. "And maybe," she continued gently, "he feels like he has to do something big to stop it, even if that means creating something that isn't real." Noah's heart stopped. She was turning this on him. Ethan's face was unreadable. Noah wouldn't. "I love him, Ethan," Sophia said, her voice soft and warm. "I want us to be a family. But if he's feeling threatened, if he's scared that I'll take you away from him—" She trailed off, shaking her head sadly. Noah saw it. The shift in his father's eyes. Doubt. It settled there, deep and unshakable. Noah felt like the air had been punched from his lungs. "That's not what happened," he whispered. "She's lying." Sophia met his gaze, just for a second. And that was when he saw it. The silent victory in her expression. She had won. Ethan exhaled heavily. "Noah, I think maybe you should take a step back from this. I know you're upset, but—" "You don't believe me," Noah said, his voice hollow. Ethan hesitated. "I just think you might be letting your emotions cloud your judgment." Noah's chest ached. "She's manipulating you." "That's enough," Ethan said, his voice suddenly sharp. Sophia placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Maybe we should all take a break from this conversation," she suggested. "It's been a long day." Ethan nodded, rubbing his temples. "Yeah, let's just give this some time." Noah felt numb. Sophia gave him one last glance before turning and leaving the room, her heels clicking against the floor. The moment she was gone, Noah looked at his father. "You're making a mistake." Ethan sighed. "Noah—" "No," Noah interrupted. His voice was quiet but firm. "When you realize what she really is, it'll be too late." Ethan didn't answer. Noah turned and walked out, his entire body shaking. As he reached his room, he shut the door and locked it. His father wasn't going to help him. He was on his own now. Noah sat on the edge of his bed, gripping his tablet so tightly his knuckles turned white. His chest ached with frustration. His father hadn't believed him. He had played the recording, showed him the proof, and yet Ethan still chose to trust her. Sophia had twisted everything so easily, turning the tables on him, making it seem like he was the one making things up. He wanted to scream. Instead, he forced himself to think. He knew the truth. He knew what she was planning, and if his father wasn't going to listen now, then Noah had only one choice. He had to prove it to him in a way that Sophia couldn't manipulate. The wedding was in 6 days. That meant he had 6 days to gather enough evidence to expose her once and for all. His mind raced through the possibilities. The recording hadn't worked because Sophia convinced Ethan it was taken out of context. That meant he needed something undeniable, something visual, something that couldn't be explained away with clever words. And he had a feeling the answers were hidden in that locked drawer. The next day, Noah waited for the perfect opportunity. He knew Sophia had an appointment for her final dress fitting, which meant she would be gone for at least 2 hours. As soon as she left, he made his move. He crept downstairs, heart pounding as he stepped into her office. The air smelled faintly of her floral perfume, making his stomach twist. He moved quickly, heading straight for the bottom drawer, the one he had tried to open before. The key was still in her purse. Noah dug through the expensive leather bag, feeling around for the small metal key. His fingers brushed against something cold, and his heart leaped. He pulled it out, holding it tightly as he knelt in front of the drawer. His hands trembled as he slid the key into the lock. Quick, the drawer opened. Noah swallowed hard and reached inside, pulling out a stack of neatly arranged folders. He flipped through them quickly, his breath catching as he scanned the documents. She had everything planned. The first file contained legal paperwork outlining the transfer of Ethan's assets. As soon as they were married, Sophia would gain joint control over his bank accounts, real estate holdings, and investments. It wasn't immediate. Some things required time, but in less than a year, she would be able to move nearly half of his fortune into her own name. Noah felt sick. The second folder was even worse. It was a boarding school application. His name was printed clearly at the top. Noah Cole. His hands shook as he read the details. The school was across the country, strict, isolated, designed for troubled youth. There were notes scribbled in the margins, things that made his blood run cold. If necessary, expedite enrollment immediately. Will present behavioral concerns as reasoning. Ensure minimal contact with Ethan after transition. Noah clenched his jaw so tightly it hurt. She wasn't just planning to marry his dad. She was planning to get rid of him. And then he saw it. A letter, hidden beneath the files, crumpled as if she had tried to bury it. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind lawyers used for official documents. But the words written on it sent a chill down Noah's spine. Sophia. The boy cannot interfere. If he does, we will handle it ourselves. You know the consequences of failure. No signature. No sender. Noah's breath came fast and sharp. This wasn't just a gold-digging scheme. This was something bigger. Before he could process what it meant, the sound of the front door unlocking jolted him back to reality. Noah panicked. She wasn't supposed to be back yet. He shoved the files back into the drawer, his fingers fumbling with the key as he locked it. His pulse pounded in his ears as he sprinted across the room, throwing the key back into her purse just as footsteps echoed down the hall. He barely made it out of the office before Sophia stepped inside. Noah ducked around the corner, pressing himself flat against the wall. Silence. Then footsteps. She was standing right there, just feet away from him. Noah held his breath. The pause stretched unbearably long. Then, finally, her heels clicked against the floor as she moved further inside. Noah didn't wait. He turned and bolted up the stairs, shutting himself in his room. His heart was racing, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold his phone. He needed help. Noah grabbed his tablet, quickly transferring the photos he had taken of the documents. Then he did something he hadn't planned. He sent them to Tom Reynolds, his dad's best friend. Tom had always been skeptical of Sophia, but Ethan had brushed off his concerns. If there was anyone who would believe him, it was Tom. Noah attached the files, typing fast. "Tom, I need your help. I found these in Sophia's office. She's trying to take everything from my dad, and she's trying to send me away. There was also a letter. I don't know who sent it, but I think she's working with someone dangerous. I need you to talk to my dad before it's too late." He hesitated, then added, "Please, before she gets rid of me." He hit send. Then he sat there, staring at the screen, waiting. Minutes passed. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Tom. "Noah, stay put. Don't confront her. I'm coming over." Noah let out a shaky breath. Finally, someone believed him. But before relief could fully settle in, a sharp knock rattled his door. "Sophia." "Noah," she called, her voice too smooth, too calm. "Open the door, sweetheart." His stomach twisted. He didn't move. Another knock, harder this time. "You know," she said, her voice shifting slightly, losing its artificial sweetness. "It's not polite to snoop through other people's things." Noah's breath caught in his throat. She knew. "I don't know what you're talking about," he managed, forcing his voice to stay steady. A quiet laugh. "Oh, come on, Noah. You're a smart boy. You didn't really think I wouldn't notice." Noah's fingers hovered over his phone. He should call his dad, or Tom. Before he could, the handle rattled. She was trying to open it, but it was locked. Silence. Then, so soft it sent chills down his spine, Sophia whispered, "You're making things very difficult for yourself." Noah gripped his phone. "My dad'll be home soon," he lied. "And Tom's coming over." That seemed to give her pause. Then, without another word, she walked away. Noah waited until her footsteps faded completely before he let out the breath he'd been holding. She was on to him. He didn't have much time left. He had to stop her. And now he wasn't sure if exposing her was enough. Because, for the first time, a terrifying thought crept into his mind. Sophia wasn't just dangerous. She was capable of anything. Noah sat on his bed, gripping his phone like a lifeline. His heart pounded as he stared at the message from Tom. "Noah, stay put. Don't confront her. I'm coming over." Tom was on his side. That was the only thing keeping him from spiraling into full-blown panic, because now he knew Sophia was onto him. She had tried to get into his room. She had whispered through the door, her voice coated in ice. Noah swallowed hard, his throat dry as sandpaper. She wasn't just planning to steal from his dad. She was planning something worse. He could feel it. He needed more than just a few stolen documents. He needed something so undeniable that even his father wouldn't be able to turn away from it, and there was only one way to get it. Noah took a deep breath and slipped out of his room. The house was eerily quiet. Sophia was still downstairs. He could hear the soft clink of a glass, the slow, deliberate sound of heels tapping against the hardwood floor. She wasn't in a rush. She was waiting. Noah moved quickly, keeping his steps light as he crept toward her office. He had already gone through the papers in her desk, but he hadn't checked her laptop. If she was in contact with someone dangerous, if she had partners, then her computer would have the proof. His hands were slick with sweat as he eased the office door shut behind him and made his way to the desk. The laptop was there, closed, waiting. He pressed the power button. A login screen flashed. Password protected. Noah bit his lip. Of course, she wasn't stupid, but she was predictable. He glanced around the room searching for clues. A sticky note, a notebook, some kind of hint. Then he saw it. Her purse. His stomach twisted. He had gone through it before to find the key, but if she had written down her password anywhere, it would be in there. He reached for it, his fingers fumbling slightly as he unzipped the side pocket. And there it was, a small slip of paper. Cole 9814. Noah's pulse thundered in his ears as he typed it into the laptop. The screen flickered. Then, access granted. Noah exhaled sharply. He was in. He clicked through her folders, scanning for anything that looked out of place. And then he found it. A folder titled Final Steps. His chest tightened. He opened it. Emails. Bank transactions. A draft of a prenup agreement that Ethan hadn't even signed yet. Then, something worse. A document labeled Noah's Transition Plan. He clicked it open. His stomach dropped. It was a detailed plan on how to slowly convince Ethan that Noah was unstable. Increase discussions about his behavioral issues. Emphasize his attachment issues with therapists. If needed, document violent outbursts to justify relocation to a controlled environment. Noah's hands shook as he scrolled. Sophia was setting him up. She was planting the idea in his father's head that he was a problem that needed to be sent away. His vision blurred with anger. But then, a message popped up in the corner of the screen. An incoming email, from an address he didn't recognize. Noah's breath caught as he opened it. Subject: We have a problem. Sophia, the boy is getting too close. If you can't control him, we will. You know what needs to be done. No more delays. Noah's blood ran cold. He barely had time to process what he was reading when the office door creaked open. Noah froze. Sophia stepped inside, her eyes landing on him immediately. For the first time, she didn't pretend to be surprised. She knew. And this time, she didn't bother with a smile. She shut the door behind her. Well, she murmured, tilting her head, aren't you a curious little thing? Noah's heart slammed against his ribs. His hands hovered over the keyboard, but he knew it was too late. She had caught him. And the look in her eyes told him one thing. She wasn't going to let him walk away from this. Slowly, she stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the floor. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? She said, her voice smooth as silk. You had to push. Had to dig. Noah forced himself to stay still. She stopped a few feet away, watching him carefully. Tell me, Noah, she continued, what do you think you figured out? Noah swallowed hard. His fingers tightened into fists. I know everything, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. I know you're lying to my dad. I know you're stealing from him. And I know you're trying to get rid of me. Sophia's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Then, slowly, she sighed. You're such a smart boy, she murmured. It's really a shame. A shame. Noah's skin crawled. He didn't wait. He grabbed the laptop and bolted. Sophia lunged after him. Noah barely managed to slip past her, shoving the office door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Noah, she snapped, her voice sharp with fury. He sprinted down the hall, nearly tripping over his own feet as he tore toward the staircase. His dad was still at work. But Tom was coming. Noah raced for the front door. Sophia was right behind him. Then, a loud knock. Noah skidded to a stop. Tom's voice rang out. Noah, open up. Sophia halted too. For a split second, they stared at each other. Then, just like that, she smiled. The mask snapped back into place. She smoothed her blouse, ran a hand through her hair, and turned toward the door. Noah's entire body shook as he scrambled forward, unlocking it with trembling fingers. The second the door swung open, Tom stepped inside. Noah barely had time to react before Sophia spoke. "Oh, Tom," she sighed, shaking her head. "Thank God you're here. Noah's been having such a rough time lately." Noah's breath caught. She was already spinning her story. Tom's sharp gaze flickered between them. Then he looked at Noah. Really looked at him. And that's when Noah realized Tom already knew. "You okay, kid?" Tom asked, his voice firm. Noah nodded. I need to show you something." Tom's jaw tightened. "Then let's go." Sophia's smile didn't falter. But as Noah turned away, he felt her watching him. And he knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Noah sat stiffly on the leather couch in the living room, his hands clenched into fists on his lap. Tom was next to him, flipping through the documents and screenshots on Noah's tablet, his expression darkening with every passing second. Across from them, Sophia sat with one leg crossed over the other, completely composed, a small, amused smile playing at her lips. Ethan stood near the fireplace, arms folded tightly across his chest, his brows knitted together in confusion. "Tom," he said, voice edged with frustration. "What exactly is this?" Tom exhaled sharply, setting the tablet down on the coffee table. "It's proof, Ethan," he said. "Proof that Sophia isn't who she says she is." Sophia let out a soft, almost pitying chuckle. "Oh, Tom," she sighed, shaking her head. "I always knew you didn't like me, but this?" She gestured toward the documents. "You're really trying to convince Ethan that I'm some sort of criminal mastermind." Noah's heart pounded. She was already twisting it, already spinning it in a way that made them look crazy. He turned to his dad. "Dad, just look at it," he pleaded. "Read the emails, the financial transfers, the boarding school application. She's trying to take everything from you, and she wants to get rid of me." Ethan ran a hand down his face, frustration evident in his stance. He turned to Sophia, his expression torn. "Sophia, what is all this?" Sophia's lips pressed together in a sad, understanding smile. "Ethan," she said softly, "this is exactly what I was worried about." She looked at Noah with feigned sympathy. "He's spiraling, he's scared of change, and he's trying to make me into a villain because he doesn't know how to handle it." Noah's fists clenched tighter. "It's not what's happening," he snapped. "I have proof." Sophia sighed and leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Noah, sweetheart, I know this is hard for you, but fabricating things like this, hacking into my computer, this isn't normal behavior." "I didn't fabricate anything," Noah shouted, panic bubbling in his chest. "I recorded you talking about getting rid of me. I found emails." Ethan raised a hand, stopping him. "Noah," he said firmly, "enough." Noah froze, his breath catching in his throat. His dad wasn't listening. Tom frowned. "Ethan, you can't seriously." "I don't know what to think," Ethan snapped, his voice louder than before. "I've got my best friend telling me that the woman I love is trying to rob me blind, and I've got my son breaking into her office and stealing her personal files. This is insane." Noah felt a sharp sting behind his eyes, but he refused to let the tears fall. "Dad, please," he whispered. "She's lying to you." Sophia exhaled, standing gracefully. "Ethan, I love you," she said, stepping toward him, placing a delicate hand on his arm. "But I don't think I can live in a house where I'm being spied on and accused of such awful things." She let her voice waver just enough. Maybe we should postpone the wedding until things settle down." Ethan hesitated, looking at her, and Noah's stomach dropped. She was doing it again. She was making herself the victim. "Maybe that's a good idea," Ethan admitted, rubbing his temples. Noah's pulse quickened. No, this is wrong." Sophia took a slow breath. "And maybe, just maybe, Noah needs some professional help." Noah's blood turned to ice. Ethan's head snapped toward her. "What?" She gave a sad little shrug. "Ethan, think about it. He's been acting out for weeks. He's refusing to accept our relationship, making up these wild accusations, invading my privacy." She sighed, shaking her head. "Maybe it's time to consider therapy, just to help him adjust." Noah shot to his feet. "I don't need therapy. I need you to see what's right in front of you." Ethan's jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists. He looked like a man caught between two opposing forces, unsure which way to turn. Tom ran a hand through his graying hair and let out a sharp breath. "Ethan," he said, voice low, "if you don't believe Noah, fine. But I do. And I'm not just some paranoid friend trying to ruin your wedding. Look at the facts." Ethan turned away, pressing his fingers against his temple. I need time to think," he muttered. Sophia's lips curled ever so slightly. She was winning. Noah could see it. His father, his only ally, was slipping away. A lump formed in his throat as the realization hit him like a freight train. He wasn't going to convince Ethan tonight. Maybe not ever. Sophia reached for Ethan's hand, squeezing it gently. "Take all the time you need," she murmured. Then she glanced at Noah. "And in the meantime, I think it would be best if Noah stayed somewhere else for a little while." Noah's heart slammed against his ribs. "What?" Sophia looked at him with feigned concern. "It's not a punishment, sweetheart. I just think a little space might help." She turned to Ethan. "Maybe he could stay with Tom for a few days, just until things calm down?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't—" Tom stepped forward. "That's actually not a bad idea," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let me take Noah for a bit, give you some time to think." Noah shot Tom a look of betrayal, but then he caught the subtle message in his expression. Tom knew this was bad, and this was the only way to get Noah out of the house. Ethan exhaled slowly. Yeah, maybe that's for the best." Noah's throat tightened, but he bit back his protest. Sophia smiled. "Wonderful. I think we'll all feel better after a little break." She turned and met Noah's gaze. And in her eyes, he saw the silent promise. Checkmate. Noah sat stiffly in the passenger seat of Tom's car, staring out the window, fists clenched so tightly his nails dug into his palms. His dad had actually let her do it. He had let her win. Tom was silent for a few minutes before finally speaking. "I know you're mad," he said, "but this was the only way." Noah swallowed. "He's never going to believe me, is he?" Tom didn't answer right away. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know that if we don't act fast, it's going to be too late." Noah turned to him. "What do we do now?" Tom's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "We do what your dad won't." Noah furrowed his brows. "We take this to someone who can actually stop her?" Noah's breath caught. "Rachel Hayes," Tom said, "the private investigator." Noah had never met her, but he knew she had worked with Tom before, and from what he had heard, she was good. Really good. Tom glanced at Noah. If Sophia's got skeletons in her closet, Rachel's going to find them. For the first time in days, a flicker of hope sparked in Noah's chest. They weren't giving up. Not yet. But deep down, he knew. Sophia wouldn't give up either. And this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Noah sat on the couch in Tom's living room, staring at the dim glow of his phone screen. His father hadn't called. Hadn't even texted. He should have expected it. Sophia was there, whispering in Ethan's ear, convincing him that Noah was unstable, that he was overreacting, that he was just a scared little boy who couldn't handle change. The thought made Noah's stomach twist with frustration. But at least he was here. At least Tom had gotten him out of that house. Now they had a chance to fight back. Tom sat across from him, phone pressed to his ear as he spoke in low, urgent tones. "Yeah. Tomorrow morning, no later." He paused. "All right, thanks, Rachel." He hung up and exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face before glancing at Noah. "She's in," Tom said. "Rachel's already digging into Sophia's past. If there's something there, she'll find it." Noah nodded, gripping his phone tightly. "How long do you think it'll take?" Tom frowned. "Hard to say, but if Sophia's as careful as we think, it might not be easy." Noah swallowed. "What if she's too good at covering her tracks?" Tom's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we go another route." Noah frowned. "What does that mean?" Tom leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "It means we make her slip up, force her hand. If she's playing a long game, we speed it up and make her show her true colors before she's ready." Noah felt a flicker of hope. "How?" Tom hesitated, then gave a small smirk. "We let her think she's won." Noah blinked. "What?" Tom leaned back, stretching his arms over the couch. "Sophia's biggest strength is control. She's patient. She plays the long con, convinces people over time, makes them trust her." He tilted his head. "But what if we make her desperate?" Noah sat up straighter. "You mean push her into making a mistake?" Tom nodded. "Exactly. It was risky, but it was also their best shot." The next morning, Tom drove Noah across town to a small, nondescript office building tucked between a bakery and an old record shop. Rachel Hayes was already waiting inside. She was younger than Noah expected, probably in her mid-30s, with dark hair tied back in a ponytail and sharp brown eyes that looked like they missed nothing. She shook Tom's hand first, then turned her gaze to Noah, studying him for a long moment before offering a small nod. "You're the kid who's been keeping me busy all night." Noah swallowed. "Did you find anything?" Rachel sighed, crossing her arms. "She's clean, too clean." Noah's heart sank. Rachel held up a hand. "That doesn't mean she's innocent. It just means she's smart." No legal records, no financial inconsistencies under her real name, no sudden money transfers. At least not yet. Tom frowned. But, Rachel smirked. But she does have a pattern. She pulled out a folder and flipped it open, revealing a series of newspaper clippings. 3 years ago, Sophia Turner, except back then she was Sophia Graves, was engaged to a wealthy investor in Chicago. Rachel tapped the photo of a man in a tailored suit. Wedding was called off at the last minute, no explanation. 2 weeks later, he was in a coma after a suspicious accident at his home. The guy woke up 6 months later and had no memory of their relationship. Noah's breath caught. Rachel continued. 5 years before that, she was engaged to a tech CEO in Seattle, called off the wedding 3 days before the ceremony. He went bankrupt 6 months later. Tom whistled low. Damn. Noah felt his stomach turn. So she's done this before? Rachel nodded. She gets close, earns their trust. Then, right before sealing the deal, something happens. An accident. A sudden business failure. And in every case she walks away clean, untouched. Noah felt a chill run down his spine. His father was next. Rachel leaned back, crossing her legs. She's not a scam artist. She's a ghost. She moves from place to place, never leaving enough behind to connect the dots. And whatever happens to her targets? She raised a brow. Not her fault. Tom exhaled. We need to get Ethan to see this. Rachel shook her head. It won't be enough. Noah's stomach clenched. Why not? Rachel gave him a hard look. Because people like Sophia? They don't just convince their targets. They reprogram them. Your dad trusts her. He won't believe she's capable of something like this unless you show him in a way he can't ignore. Noah's fists clenched. Then we do it. Tom nodded. We follow the plan. We make her desperate. We push her into making a mistake. Rachel smirked. I like this kid. That evening, Noah sat in Tom's guest room, staring at his phone. He had texted his dad earlier, just a simple hey. But Ethan hadn't responded. He wanted to believe it was because of work. But deep down, he knew the truth. Sophia was winning. Tom knocked on the door before stepping inside. You all right? Noah let out a breath. I don't know. Tom sat on the edge of the bed. We're gonna stop her, kid. You know that, right? Noah nodded, but the knot in his stomach didn't loosen. Then his phone buzzed. A message from an... You're running out of time. Noah's breath caught. Another message came through. I always win. His hands shook as he showed the screen to Tom. Tom's jaw tightened. She knows we're on to her. Noah swallowed. So what do we do now? Tom's eyes darkened. Now? He exhaled sharply. We finish this. The next day, Rachel set the plan into motion. Tom called Ethan and told him they needed to meet, just him, no Sophia. Ethan hesitated, but agreed. Rachel made sure Noah wasn't anywhere near the house. If Sophia thought she had won, she'd let her guard down. And that's when Rachel would move in. She had already sent an anonymous tip to the police about Sophia's past connections. It wouldn't be enough to arrest her, but it would be enough to make her nervous. And nervous people made mistakes. Noah sat in Tom's car, waiting, his heart pounding. Then, finally, Tom's phone rang. Rachel's voice was crisp. She took the bait. Noah's stomach flipped. What happened? Rachel smirked. She panicked. She called someone, probably her real partner. And guess what? Tom leaned forward. What? Rachel's grin widened. We recorded everything. Noah's breath caught. This was it. The beginning of the end. But deep down, he knew. Sophia wouldn't go down without a fight. Noah sat in the passenger seat of Tom's car, his pulse hammering in his ears as he listened to the recorded phone call Rachel had captured. Sophia's voice, normally so smooth, so carefully controlled, was sharp, frantic. This wasn't the plan. A male voice, low and irritated, responded. Then fix it. You don't think I'm trying, Sophia hissed. He won't listen to me right now. I need more time. You don't have time. The wedding is in 2 days. If he doesn't sign the documents, we lose everything. Sophia let out a harsh breath. I can handle Noah. He's out of the way. Noah's hands clenched into fists. He's not the problem anymore, the man said coldly. It's Ethan. If you can't make him sign, then we'll have to move to Plan B. A long silence. Then Sophia's voice, lower, quieter. If we do that, it'll be permanent. Exactly. Rachel stopped the recording. Noah's breath came fast and shallow. They're going to kill him, he whispered. Tom tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his face pale but hard. Not if we stop them first. Rachel's jaw was clenched as she tossed her phone onto the dashboard. We have enough to take this to the police now. Noah's heart pounded. Will they actually do something? Rachel hesitated. They should. Tom swore under his breath. That's not good enough. We don't have time to wait for the cops to make a move. If Sophia thinks she's backed into a corner, she'll act. He turned to Rachel. We need a backup plan. Rachel exhaled, running a hand through her hair. Then we make sure she's caught red-handed before she gets the chance. Noah swallowed hard. How? Rachel looked at Tom, her expression grim. We set a trap. The plan was simple, dangerous, risky, but it was the only way. They needed Sophia to believe she had Ethan right where she wanted him, to push her into making that final move before she realized the walls were closing in. Tom called Ethan and told him he needed to talk, alone, that he had proof that Sophia was lying. Ethan was reluctant, but after some convincing, he agreed to meet at the house that night. What he didn't know was that Rachel had already set up surveillance inside. Every corner of the house was wired. The moment Sophia made her move, everything would be recorded, and the cops would be waiting. Noah's hands were ice cold as he crouched in the back of Tom's car, parked just down the street from his house. He watched through the windshield as Ethan's car pulled into the driveway. He wanted to be in there, to warn his dad himself. But Rachel had insisted. Sophia would be watching. If she even suspected something was off, she'd vanish before they could stop her. So Noah waited. And then the lights in the house flickered on. Sophia was home. Rachel's voice crackled over the earpiece Tom wore. Showtime. Inside the house, Ethan closed the front door behind him, rubbing his temple as he stepped into the living room. Sophia was waiting, sitting on the couch, wine glass in hand. She smiled, but there was something off about it. Something wrong. Long day? She asked sweetly. Ethan sighed, loosening his tie. Yeah, Tom wanted to talk to me. He said it was important. Sophia's eyes darkened for a split second before she covered it with a soft chuckle. Tom worries too much. Ethan frowned, moving toward the bar to pour himself a drink. He thinks you're hiding something. Sophia tilted her head. And what do you think? Ethan hesitated. I don't know. Sophia stood slowly, crossing the room. She moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist, pressing her cheek against his back. "You love me," she murmured. Ethan stiffened. "You trust me," she whispered. Ethan set the glass down, turning in her arms. He studied her face, looking for something, anything, that would tell him the truth. Sophia smiled up at him, soft, reassuring. But Ethan had spent years in business negotiations. He knew when someone was selling him something. And right now, Sophia was selling a lie. Noah held his breath as he watched from the car. Through the window, he could see his father and Sophia standing close. Too close. Then, Sophia reached into her pocket. Noah's stomach dropped. "She's going for something," he shouted. Rachel swore, "Move in, now!" Inside, Ethan barely had time to react before Sophia pulled out a small vial and, with a quick, practiced motion, emptied it into his drink. He stared at her, stunned. She smiled. "Drink up, darlin'." Ethan's stomach twisted. But before he could say a word, the front door burst open. "Hands where we can see them." Sophia spun, eyes wide as cops flooded into the house, weapons drawn. Rachel stormed in right behind them, holding up her phone. "We heard everything, sweetheart. Game's over." Sophia's mask cracked. For the first time, she looked scared. She turned to Ethan. "Baby, please, you have to believe me." Ethan took a step back. And just like that, she knew it was over. With a snarl, she turned, tried to run, but the cops were already on her. They slammed her against the wall, cuffing her hands behind her back. Noah threw the car door open, sprinting toward the house just as Sophia was dragged past him. She lifted her head, eyes burning with rage. "You think this is over?" she hissed. Noah met her gaze. And for the first time in weeks, he wasn't afraid. "It is over," he said. Sophia sneered. "We'll see." Then she was gone. Noah turned, his breath coming fast and uneven. Then his father was there. Ethan stared at him, eyes filled with so much regret. But Noah didn't let him finish. He threw himself into his father's arms, burying his face in Ethan's chest. For a moment, Ethan just stood there, stunned. Then he wrapped his arms around his son, holding him tight. "I'm so sorry," Ethan whispered. Noah swallowed the lump in his throat. "I tried to tell you." "I know," Ethan said, voice breaking. "I know." They stayed like that, holding on to each other as the chaos swirled around them. But for the first time in weeks, Noah finally felt safe. 2 weeks later, Sophia was officially charged with conspiracy, attempted fraud, and attempted poisoning. But Noah knew she wasn't the real mastermind. She had been working with someone else. And that meant it wasn't over. Not yet. But when he looked up at his father, at Tom, at Rachel, he knew he wouldn't have to face it alone. Thank you for sticking with us until the very end of this story. It means a lot to have you here, listening, watching, and experiencing every twist and turn alongside us. This story isn't just about uncovering deception. It's about trust, intuition, and resilience. It teaches us that sometimes the people we love can be blinded by charm and manipulation, and it's up to us to stand strong, even when no one believes us. Noah's journey reminds us that the truth always finds a way to come out, no matter how deeply it's buried. It also raises an important lesson: never ignore your instincts. If something feels off, don't be afraid to ask questions, dig deeper, and fight for what's right, because in the end, those who persist in seeking the truth are the ones who protect the people they love. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next thrilling story. More gripping tales are on the way, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay safe, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next video.